This theme is all about career development. And really, we heard career development, by the way, sprinkled through most of the course. Um, this one will really focus on our heavy lifting course, the TL1, the KL2 workforce, and we've added informatics because we really want to develop a career development path in informatics. So with that, Kathy, you're going to start. So why don't you lead the TL1 charge?
Okay, I'm trying to share my screen and it's not letting me. So I need to, okay, there we go. Can you see that?
We certainly can.
Okay, great. So I'm trying to get it into, there we go. Okay, so thanks. Welcome back, everybody. So what I'd like to spend the next 10 or 15 minutes talking about is our TL1 program, which we refer to as the NJAX Fellows Program. And for those of you who are not as familiar with the TL1, it's very similar to a T32, but the fundamental difference is it is really agnostic in terms of discipline. So it's not about what your science is, it's about how to take your science and translate it. So you'll see as we go through the program that it's very different than most of the TL1s or T32s that we're used to. So what are the goals of our fellows program? One is to enhance scientific knowledge, the skills and the competencies needed to conduct translational or clinical research. So what you're going to see as I go through the slides is that we really have a very diverse group of students and postdocs. We have a very diverse group of disciplines, and we have a diverse career outcomes that are anticipated by our trainees. So our role really in training them is to provide them with the skills they need to take what they're doing and move it along the translational spectrum. So part of that is also career development activities. We have a number of career development activities that we offer throughout their training. We have a particular emphasis on how to take your research, whether you're a pre-doc or a postdoc or a medical student, because we do have a medical student, and move it forward, apply it along the spectrum. Communication is key, collaboration and team science are something we're especially emphasizing this next year. And then really the third goal, and we're really just starting this, is to expand the opportunities throughout NJAX and throughout the CTSA consortium. It's been mentioned a few times that there's a tremendous number of opportunities among the hubs, and we're just really beginning to appreciate how much we can do collaboratively. So this is a snapshot of the program. It's a 2 to 3 year program. We did that intentionally in order to avoid too much of an impact on the trainees' research efforts. It's funded for the first year, but every trainee commits to 2 to 3 years. So potential fellows compete for 6 slots each year. It's been very exciting to review these applications. They're highly competitive, and we've got a great pool of applicants. So we onboarded our first cohort last October. They just actually completed their first year. Our second cohort was just onboarded September 1st, actually. We also have just started a pilot program. This isn't funded yet by the CTSA, but we really felt that we wanted to expand our fellow population. So we have one medical student who I'll introduce later who's agreed to be the guinea pig for this program. And we're doing this in collaboration with the Workforce Corps. So what do our 2 cohorts look like so far? So we have 7 male, 6 female. 9 of them are pre-docs, 4 of them are postdocs. Moving forward, we'll be accepting 4 pre-docs and 2 postdocs a year. We have 9 PhDs, 3 MD PhDs, and 1 medical student. So as I mentioned before, we're really agnostic to the scientific disciplines. So we have, even though we're only in our 2nd year, we already have a pretty multidisciplinary cohort. We've got basic biomedical researchers, population scientists, behavior and social scientists. We have a few engineers within our group. And I think that makes it an even richer opportunity for the trainees because they are really interacting quite well across different disciplines that they may not have encountered otherwise. And of course, I don't know if we've mentioned our Academy of Mentors yet, but we do have an Academy of Mentors. We're up to 131 faculty that cross all 3 of our partner institutions. So that's really quite exciting. And I'll just say now, if anyone is interested in joining the Academy, you can contact me or Dan Notterman, who is the co-director, or Anda at Rutgers for Rutgers and NJIT, or Bianca for Princeton. So we've got a really great group of faculty who are very committed to this training. So I want to introduce these fellows, and I want to spend a couple of minutes on this. I won't go through all of their projects, but as you can see, there's quite a bit of diversity there. These are the first cohort of fellows that we accepted. So what you're seeing here is obviously their pictures, and they're just a fantastic group. I have to say that if anyone is worried about the future of biomedical research, come to one of our dinners and meet the group of 13 fellows that we have right now, because they're incredibly engaged, very, very smart, very, very collaborative. I mean, it's really quite, it's a lot of fun to work with them. And I know many of them are actually at the meeting right now. So shout out to you. We've really enjoyed working with you so far. So the other thing that I just want to point out on these slides as I go through them is one of the things that we've been able to establish with Cindy that's really been quite effective so far, given that we're only in our second year, is we've got a fairly robust evaluation and assessment program. So one of the things that we do is when we first onboard both the fellow and the fellow's primary mentor, Cindy or someone in her group will interview them and ask them, what do you expect out of this program? And then periodically they will be interviewed throughout the course of their time in the program, and hopefully even after they've left the program, to ask if their expectations have been met. What more would they want to see? And this has really helped us. You know, I told the first year cohort that they're almost like first children. They're going to get a lot of attention, but we'll also probably make mistakes with them. And they've been incredibly generous in their contribution to morphing the program into something that's really becoming quite functional. So what you're seeing here in the quotes here is just some of the initial impressions of the first cohort in terms of what they were hoping to get out of the program. And we are now in the process of interviewing the second cohort as well as the first cohort to see how things are going. And we take these responses very, very seriously in terms of altering the program or enhancing certain parts of the program in order to make sure that we're really accomplishing what we want to accomplish. So this is our second year cohort. You already heard about Jennifer. Steve talked about Jennifer as one of our newer TL1 fellows. And again, as you can see, crosses a spectrum of disciplines. We have here 3 postdocs and 3 pre-docs, 3 postdocs. And I just want to introduce Shane because he was generous enough to act as the guinea pig for a pilot program for actually professional degree students. And he has taken a gap year in medical school in order to do that. So we'll hopefully be able to report more on that next year. So what is the training program? We refer to it as precision training, and we don't use that term lightly. When we looked at, especially our first cohort, in terms of the diversity of their experience, where they were in their training, what their discipline, research discipline was, and what their career objectives were, we realized that one size wouldn't fit all. So we're really basing the training on the individual competencies and career objectives of each trainee. And I'll tell you a little bit of how we're doing that in a minute. So I really like this figure. We took it out of a paper that came out, fortunately for us, last year. And it was authored, there were a number of authors, but Chris Austin was the senior author on this. And it was really asking the question, what are the competencies or characteristics needed for a very successful translational researcher? So some of these are obvious. You know, we expect all of our trainees to be rigorous researchers. That goes without saying. We expect them all to be, or at least become, domain experts. But some of these others, I don't think there's an expectation for all of our trainees to do this, but certainly if they are going to be in translational research, these are some of the expectations. Systems thinkers. So what are the relationships? What are the external factors that impact new medical interventions? What does it take to, and who does it take to get your research out into the broader community and to apply it to medical and health interventions? That's one. Skilled communicator. We're really emphasizing this year. I'll talk a little bit more about that later, but obviously being able to communicate your science, not just to a diverse population of scientists, but also to lay people, government officials, etc. Process innovator. So that is really talking about what is the process of translation. Understanding it and knowing how to adapt it is very critical as you go through the spectrum. Team player and boundary crosser, I kind of think of as being very related. So I'll talk in a little bit, and Bob talked about, teaching team science. There's actually a science of team science, which is really fascinating. And how do you become a team player? How do you do that successfully? How do you work with other members of the team? And part of that is being able to cross boundaries, being able to, cross beyond your discipline into all the other disciplines that will be involved in moving the research you're doing forward. So what is the program approach? I won't go through all of these things, but basically, you can look for this. This is a continuum: building knowledge, improving skills, and demonstrating abilities. So obviously we have didactic training. We have a very extensive self-assessment process, and this really helps us in the precision part of the training. So each trainee fills out the self-assessment, and the mentor also does an assessment of the trainee. So we can really look at goals as gaps in understanding, et cetera. And that allows us to really personalize the individual training. And then other things that you would expect. Improving skills, we do have a whole requirement for experiential learning. I can use Tom as the example because I think that was our first success story. Tom was a postdoc and is a postdoc from our first cohort. He's an engineer looking at wound healing. And when we talked to Tom and his mentor, Dan, and said, well, what could we do for you that could extend your knowledge and understanding of this area? And they said, we'd love to talk to someone in the clinic who deals with wound healing. So he ended up interacting with the head of our wound healing clinic at Robert Wood Johnson, and it really transformed the way they were thinking of what they were developing. So, that's the ideal story of how that experiential learning can really open opportunities and really maybe change the way you're thinking about how you will apply your own research. And then the other part of it is, how do you demonstrate abilities? So, you can look at these are just some of the things that are currently available or will be available very shortly for all our trainees. So this is just, I'll go through this quickly, but this is just an idea of complementary skills that are viewed as valuable for translational science. Obviously, personal development, that's valuable for all of us. Time management, I mean, we do have a pretty intense program that is superimposed on the research program. So we're very conscious of our trainees' times and helping them to manage the time. Project management. There's a big interest in entrepreneurship. That's why I was very interested to see the program in Georgia, because a lot of our trainees have expressed an interest in this. So we have some training in entrepreneurship, but the plan is to expand that. And then, of course, financial management. So what are the highlights of really, this is our first year of activities, because we have just begun the second cohort. So we've developed some unique online assessment and planning tools that's really helped us and the trainees and the mentors, get a better sense of where they are and where they want to be going in the program. We've developed a guidebook which outlines the program requirements. We realized after the first year, when we kept getting emails saying, tell me the requirements again, that this was something that was really needed. We've established the training EAB, and fortunately we have Henry Bloomberg from Georgia, who is part of that. And that's an EAB really for the training components, the TL1, the KL2, and workforce development. And we have our first meeting in mid-December. We have had a master's and certificate program in clinical translational research or science for actually many years. It's probably at this point embarrassing to say this, but Judy Neubauer and I, 10, 12 years ago, whenever the CTS program first started, I guess 13 years ago or so, we wrote one of the pilot grants, and we got it funded. So we actually developed this program based on that first pilot grant. So it's been going for quite a while, but we are now morphing it and enhancing the clinical research component for both the MS and certificate program. We've just developed a new team science course. It's a very cool course because the co-directors who are both on at this meeting right now, one is a biomedical engineer and the other is part of our Center for Leadership. So they've come together to really teach not just what team science is, but really the science of team science. We've also expanded our communicating science course, which is another interesting course because it brings together scientists, faculty from the School of Communication and Information, as well as faculty from the Mason Gross School of the Arts. So it's really a very comprehensive approach to how to communicate. We've established monthly fellow dinners. They used to be in person and now they're virtual, with a number of guest speakers. If anyone is really interested, we're going to be reaching out to many of you to be guest speakers for this group. But if you have a real interest in meeting them, we would love to hear from you. We've formalized the dissemination of funding workshop and seminar opportunities. We are trying to engage our mentors more, because one of the comments from the first year assessment was some of the mentors felt, and this is going to resonate because we've heard this many times today, is they didn't really understand what the CTA is. And we realized that we met with them in the beginning when we first onboarded the fellow, but didn't meet with them again throughout that first year. So we are going to be developing a program to really keep the individual mentors much more engaged. And the other thing we want to do is celebrate accomplishments. You know, we have expectations, as everybody does for the trainees, publications, presentations, grants, and we want to make sure that we celebrate them. So we're fortunate that 2 of our first year cohorts have already received their own individual fellowships. Caleb and Alex, and Tom has already have a publication, and others have publications submitted. So what we decided to do is every time we've got a big hit like this, we're going to do something fun for the whole cohort. So the first fun thing we did is we made them all members, or we supported their membership in AAAS. So we'll be coming up with ideas like that for the whole cohort as we go through, not to just reward the individual accomplishments, but reward the cohort for working so closely together and being so supportive of each other. So we have a number of, actually, we pretty much interact with every core within the CTSA. Some of the interactions are much more formalized than others. You know, we have the Academy of Mentors, which crosses membership in all the cores. So that's certainly something that brings us all together. But we have strong relationships right now with workforce. We have regular meetings. We're sharing the EAB. I think Lauren will be speaking pretty soon about the intern program. Obviously, we work closely with the KL2. Again, regular meetings. We share coursework, degree programs, and we share the Academy of Mentors. We've been working particularly closely with this team science group in the past several months to develop this team science course. So I think it's, you know, again, we haven't started, starts in the spring, but it looks like it's going to really be a great course. And that was really a team effort. We work very closely with Cindy and her team. Again, Cindy may mention some of that later on, but we've got really a very strong evaluation and assessment effort already going on, which I think is great. And then, of course, we're working with all the other, I didn't put them all here because they didn't all fit, but we're working with all the other cores, and we will be continuing to enhance those collaborations as we move forward. Actually, that's one of the primary goals of year 2. As I mentioned, we work with the School of Communications. Whoops, that's okay. We work with the School of Communications and Informatics and Information, and we also work for Rutgers Center for Organizational Development, where we get the leadership training as well as the course development. So there's really quite a bit of collaboration, both within the NJX cores and really throughout right now Rutgers, and we're extending that to Princeton and NJIT. So what do we need to do to maximize success? You know, again, we had our first cohort, and they have really helped us to understand what they need, what works, what may not work as well. So one of the things we're doing, and hopefully we will talk about this more next year, is we're exploring the implementation of digital badging. Probably most of you don't know what digital badging is, but it is another way to award competencies. I can talk about that more at another time, but we're really looking into that now. Rutgers actually has some digital badging. We have a collaboration or a partnership with a company that does digital badging, and we're looking for opportunities to do that maybe in informatics and team science and a number of other disciplines. We want to enhance the diversity and inclusion efforts for both the Academy and the Fellow. I think we're doing pretty well considering we're only in our second cohort. But we really want to broaden the representation of URMs within the program and raise visibility across the available applicant pool. We're going to expand the pilot training program. Hopefully we'll try that this next year. Right now, as I mentioned, Shane is our one medical student in this. We're going to try to expand that to professional degrees in nursing, pharmacy, dental, etc., because we have everything here at RVHS. One of the things that we really have to focus on, somebody mentioned before that in some strange way, COVID was a plus because it allowed us to learn how to deliver information virtually. But because we want to have more interactions within or across the universities, across the state of New Jersey, and be able to have more program interactions, we really want to keep a lot of what we're doing virtual. So there's virtual and there's virtual. There's the virtual you do overnight because all of a sudden, we're in the situation we're in right now. And then there's the really sophisticated way to virtually deliver programs. So we're trying to move towards sophistication in this. We have 6 slots. It's a decent number of slots a year, but it doesn't in any way represent the number of highly qualified trainees, even that we've seen apply for the program in the first 2 years. So we want to formalize a community of practice. We really want to bring additional pre-docs and post-docs and students in professional degree programs into this community and extend what we're doing for a relatively small group of people out into the community across the 3 institutions. We want to further engage the Academy of Mentors in both programming and networking opportunities. And then this is something we've really just started to do, and that's why we've had a real eye-opener in terms of what's available out there in the rest of the CTSA world. And one of the things that Anda and I have been engaged in is we're looking at with others across the CTSA hubs with developing a visiting fellow program. So there's already a visiting scholar program for the KL2, but there's never been an opportunity for fellows within the TL1 to actually visit, it'll be virtually initially, but to actually visit other hubs. And I think there are great opportunities there. It's a really good committee that's very committed to getting this done actually pretty quickly. I think we've already got a plan. And that's something that we'll be able to bring hopefully this year. We're involved in other groups, the online IDP study that's being led by University of Pittsburgh. And as I mentioned before, there's a science of team science, and there's actually an association for science of team science. And they have a special interest group on team science competency assessment. So we've joined that as well to really learn from them because this is their expertise, as well as work with them in terms of what may be useful for CTSAs, because this is not a CTSA specific group. So what are our opportunities and challenges? One thing that—
Couple minutes, Kathy.
I know, I'm on my last slide, or second to last slide. One thing that you probably didn't notice this because we went through the slides so quickly, but we have to enhance the engagement of NJIT. We've had no applicants in year 1 and 2, and I know we have some colleagues from NJIT at this meeting. So any ideas you might have as to how we could better market the opportunities for the TL1 would be incredibly helpful. I mentioned increasing diversity of the cohort, and one of the issues that we've had is we have a limited pool, but we also have had limited marketing of what the program can offer. I think this has been mentioned before. I think Bob mentioned this when he was talking, but we are working across multiple graduate schools, and we have had some glitches in terms of trying to make all those schools work together. I think there are a lot of opportunities to do that. We're working on that, and we just have to work through some of the obstacles we've encountered. Again, enhancing collaborations with the cores, optimizing communication and marketing, and a deeper dive into the resources available within the CTSA consortium. So that's it. Did I get in my time?
Plus or minus. Thanks, Kathy, great job. It's a wonderful summary. A couple items that I would suggest. We do have Meridian, part of this, of the groups, and she spearheads mentoring, not only teaching mentoring, but assessment of mentoring. So we're fortunate to have a vice chancellor who's devoted to that skill set. So we'd like to see that interact. Along the lines of entrepreneurism and commercializing academic assets, we're fortunate to be one of 5 hubs nationwide to get a REACH award. That's an NIH award to develop programs for academic commercialization. You're going to hear more about that at Team Science Core, but it's exciting because it interdigitates with the needs that we just heard for the T awardees, with actually a focus on marketability of discovery. And that's not for the lighthearted. It's very difficult, often not represented well at COAPs and academic promotions. So there's a lot of work to be done there, but exciting. Bob, just a couple of moments here. You had some really good ideas on interfacing our T with other T32s, institutional